It's time for a detailed update on every one of my tanks, including my 180-gallon South American tank, my 240-gallon African cichlid show tank, Alcatraz, my 75-gallon African cichlid grow-out tank, and I'm going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at my 23-gallon Apisto tank and tell you why I'm never buying a rimless tank again. And stick around to the end because I'm also going to be talking about how I'm finally getting the ball rolling on getting that big American cichlid tank that I've been talking about for a while now. Probably making that order today. For now, let's kick it off with my 180-gallon South American cichlid tank. Not too long ago, I told you that I've grown bored with this tank, even though it's the most beautiful one I have. I really like the scape, nothing too intense or skilled going on there, but those standing logs combined with the 4-foot piece of perfectly shaped driftwood, it's more than I'd hoped for. I think I actually made a big mistake with the scape in here though, and it could be extremely costly. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm still just running one FX6 canister filter on this with no backup. I love having redundancy, but I do have a backup unused FX6 if I need it should this filter go down. I can just swap the filter media out from this one and put it in the new one and it'll be instantly cycled. And I'm also still loving those aqua illumination prime lights that I installed when I added the driftwood a while back. They create this nice rippling effect throughout the tank and the light quality is just awesome. The only thing I don't like about them is how much money they cost. I just wish I didn't have to spend so much money on them, or I'd have them in Alcatraz too. I do plan on getting some for that tank, but because of the expense of the upcoming big American cichlid project and how much that's going to cost, I don't expect to see any AI primes on Alcatraz for a fairly long while. The angels are all doing pretty well. I did lose one about a month ago. He was getting bullied by this guy here. I overlooked the fact that he wasn't eating anymore. He would go up to the food and then it looked like he was eating, but he'd either eat it and spit it out or he just wouldn't eat it at all. Easy to miss, and that's why you shouldn't just feed your fish and casually enjoy watching them while they eat. You should also be studying them while they eat. Take that time at least once per day to make sure they're all eating right and that they don't have any signs of illness or bullying. If I'd been better at that, my dead angel would still be alive. My favorite fish in this tank used to be my Geophagus, the 7 red-headed tapajos and a single Geopari. Maybe they still are. Some of them are really growing well, and just look at this fella. He's still young and has a lot of growing to do, so he'll get even more beautiful. I like the way they have that red tint on their heads, which gives them their name red-headed tapajos, but I like even more the almost scintillating colors they have on their bodies and fins. It's lots of reds and blues and thin little lines, but if you notice, there are a few of them that are drastically smaller and less colored up than the bigger ones are. I'm not an expert on these fish, but I do believe those to be females. You can really see the difference between the big ones and the tiny ones though. I would think it would be a little bit closer in size, because I bought them all at the same time. So I feel like the smaller one should be a lot bigger than this by now. And the reason I'm worried is that, in my experience, fish that eat well but don't grow very much at all usually don't make it. They can be perfectly healthy looking for a long time, but they'll eventually stop eating and just die all of a sudden. Hopefully I'm wrong about these guys. Anyway, I was saying how they might not be my favorite fish anymore, and that's because of this guy right here. It's my red-tailed shark. I've had red-tailed sharks most of my fish keeping life, but since I've had cichlids, I've mostly just stuck to cichlids. I kind of felt like I was actually cheating, for no reason at all, by adding a non-cichlid to this tank, but I'm really glad I did. He has beautiful colors and that shark-like shape is very eye-catching. But the thing I like most about him is how he's always swimming around vertically, sideways, upside down. Whatever he needs to do to nibble on driftwood and plants and standing logs, he'll do it. He's a busy guy, hard-working dude, and so far the aggression that these fish often exhibit hasn't made an appearance. Hopefully it never does. Red-tailed sharks like to chase fish around until they die of exhaustion. So back to why I think the way I scaped this tank was a mistake. I mean, I like the way it looked when I first did it, and I like the way it looks now actually, except for one thing. And that's the plants. If you look closely, it kind of looks like I soaked them all in poison, and that wasn't my desired effect. Well, apparently that's what happens when I care for plants. They shrivel up, turn brown, whatever the opposite of healthy looks like, that's what my plants look like. So I really think that it sucks that I glued down so much of that moss to the driftwood for a couple of reasons. First of all, if it dies or gets eaten, then I'll be stuck with that horrible white superglue I smeared all over the driftwood. Superglue turns white when you submerge it in water, unfortunately. Second, if I move it to the newer American cichlid tank, I think it will get eaten for sure. Anyone know how to get rid of a whole bunch of white superglue from driftwood without ruining the look of it? Sanding it down would just look awful. So I may have ruined one of the best pieces of driftwood I've ever seen because I was overconfident in how easy it would be to keep something green alive in my tank. Oh, what else could I talk about with this tank? I think that about covers it for now, so let's hop over to Alcatraz, my 240-gallon African cichlid tank.
Subscribe or someone dies. Ding ding.
It's hard to believe that not too long ago I was actually thinking of rehoming all my African cichlids so that I could fill the tank with American cichlids, because I didn't have room for both of them. Well, I just wasn't thinking hard enough about it because I can make room for both of them. These African cichlids aren't going anywhere. Well, I mean, they might be going somewhere else, but they'll still be here in the house. I love them more than ever. I added some new fish from Ron's cichlids about 2 months ago, and most of them still have yet to show any color. When you add fish that are smaller than the current inmates of your tank, then they tend to color down immediately to avoid detection, and then they can take longer than normal to color up once they get larger. One exception to this is this guy right here, my Nova Blue Longnose, who's known by the ladies by the name Javier. Except there are no ladies. All male tank, of course. He's one of the triad of otopharynx inmates that came from Ron's. The other two are the Maramala, named Antonio, and the Tetrastigma, named Fabio. The Tetrastigma doesn't look like much right now, but he'll most likely be the most beautiful fish I've ever owned. The longnose came fairly colored up, and he never lost it. He just keeps getting more blue and more red. He's a great looking fish. A few of the other guys that have lots of color already are the blue dolphin that I bought from a local breeder, and the Mdoka whitelips, another Ron cichlids acquisition. Even though they're pretty similar in color, instead of fighting about it, which fish often do, it's called conspecific aggression, when one species of fish wants to kill every other fish that's the same species in a tank. They're often seen hanging out together around the middle bottom of the tank. A lot of the other fish are still pretty drab in color so far, as I expected they would be. They'll color up as they get larger and more comfortable in this prison yard. The blue dolphin will eventually start transforming as his nuchal hump comes in. That's the large hump that some of these fish get on their noggins. It's used for mind control on weak-minded fish keepers. It hardly ever works on me. Maybe 50% of the time is all, or right around half the time anyway. This Nuchisquamulatus was moved to the 75-gallon a month ago because he looked like he was getting bullied. But now, I don't know what happened with this guy, but he's one of the most confident nut jobs in the tank. And he's got a touch of color too. But he's what you might call a butthead. He's not hurting anyone, but he does chase fish around a lot. Just brief little chases, no one's getting hurt. But I don't like it, and neither do the other inmates. I'm watching you, little dude. And don't forget Icarus, my yellow lab Mbuna, who dazzles with his bright gold body. Gary the Venustus damaged his mouth when he was temporarily moved to the 75-gallon, so now he looks like this. His mouth looks a little weird now, but he appears to be doing great. He still likes being hand-fed some monster pellets almost every day. This is actually one of my favorite parts about this tank. Hand-feeding Gary. I used to hand-feed Ferk II, my old Fursicata, because he was too dumb and slow to feed with everybody else. But I just hand-feed Gary because I like to now. I love watching him chew on it, and just look at him go. By the way, Ferk II, my replacement for Ferk II, is still doing fine. I don't remember Ferk II having any yellow on him, but this guy does, on some of his fins and his head a little bit too. He's an aggressive eater, which is strange, even though he's extremely peaceful. No one picks on him at all on here. It's really unusual. It seems like at least one of these psychos would want a piece of him, but no one does. He's like a priest in with a bunch of murderers, and I guess they respect that. I'm still running the 3 FX6 canister filters on this tank. I mean, a sump would have been nice, but I didn't put one in when I installed the tank. The extra water volume is the main reason why a sump would be better. But you know what? These canister filters are doing a good job as it is. The lights on here are 2 Fluval Sea Marine 3.0s, which work really well. But someday I would like to get some AI primes on here. But that'll be about $1,000 for 3 of them, by the way. That's a lot of dough. You think I can get $1,000 for these 2 cats? This is the 75-gallon grow-out tank. It also serves as a refuge for anyone who's taken a shiv in Alcatraz. I just plop them in here for a while and let them recoup. It's so good to have another tank set up and ready to go with the same temperature and all the same water parameters as your main tank. Then if you need to move someone, you can just plop and drop. Just catch them, bring them over, and drop them in. Easy peasy. And this is where that Nuchisquamulatus was for a while. Turned him into a man, I guess. This is where my 3 Plastidochromous johnstonis are, along with a Jello Reef Mbuna sent to me by accident from Imperial Tropicals and a few Lethrinops. I haven't been paying as much attention to them as I should, or I would have noticed how long and pointed 2 of the 3 dorsal fins are. I was waiting for color to appear on the males and completely overlooked those fins, which are an obvious sign of a male cichlid. How could I miss that? The other one has a very rounded dorsal fin, obviously a female. Once I noticed this, I was going to move one over to Alcatraz, but I really think that would be a mistake to do right before I go on vacation. Whenever you make a big change to your tanks, either equipment or like adding fish, you want to be around for several days afterwards to make sure that it all ends well. And if it doesn't, you want to be around to make sure you can fix it. I'm going to be in Cancun, so if something goes south, who's going to take care of the problem? The other reason I'm not going to move one over is because I think I'm going to move two. I'm concerned a bit about conspecific aggression, which I already talked about a little bit, but I figure I'll give it a go and just watch carefully to make sure the two get along okay. And if they don't, I'll just snatch one out and rehome him. Shouldn't be too bad. I did move the aqua decor rocks around a little bit in here to make it look nicer. It's still pretty boring though, but I just haven't been focusing on this tank much since its main purpose is just to temporarily hold fish until they're ready to move to Alcatraz. But what do you think? Do you think I need to get some more decor in here even though it's just a grow out tank? Remember, you don't want to overdo your decor in an African cichlid tank because of their need for open swimming room and how they like to claim territory and then get really aggressive about defending it. But the fish in here will be younger ones and that won't really be much of a problem. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm a bit indecisive on it, obviously. And that's about all I have going on in here, so let's talk about why I'm disappointed with my attempt at an Apistogramma tank. Apistogramma are American dwarf cichlids, and they're gorgeous. I had 2 males and 2 females at one time, but they all died, which sucked. But before I lost them all, the last female had babies. I had a lot of fry, but I only have about 9 left. I was going to keep a male and female from these guys, but now I'm not so sure. When I saw the fry, I stopped trying to clean the tank super well and get rid of the algae. You see what I did there? I've noticed that a lot of the super popular non-American fish keeping YouTubers are pronouncing it algae instead of algae. Algae. I think this is really going to help boost my subscriber count big time. I didn't want to stress those babies out by sticking a siphon in the tank and sucking all the algae up. Plus I didn't want to accidentally suck up one of the fish along with it. So now look at it. Ugly. Bad. I had a plan to remove everything after the fish grow up enough and just start over with escape. But lately I've been thinking otherwise, and here's why. I've been showing you the behind the scenes look at this tank so you can see just what the tank usually looks like on a day-to-day basis without me trying to make it look pretty for the video. I'm super busy taking care of my aquariums and making videos already, and I like my tanks to look nice. What I don't like is having to add water to a tank all the time to keep it from looking like this. Because it's a rimless tank with no lid, the water evaporates so fast I'm having to constantly add water to it. But the longer I've had this tank, the less I want to constantly add water to it. It's become somewhat of a pain in the ass, if I'm being honest. I just didn't anticipate it being such a hindrance. I know I could add a lid to it, but the main reason I wanted a rimless tank was so I could have driftwood protruding from above the water line. It looks really cool when your tank doesn't look like it's been abandoned for a couple months. So now I might just sell all the babies and start again with a different setup, or maybe add a lid to this one and get some different fish. I mean, my track record is a whopping 0% success rate of keeping adult Apistos anyway, so that might be the best for everyone involved if I just move on. I'm still really deciding this one, so nothing's for certain. By the way, this Tidal HOB is the best HOB you can buy in my opinion. And you probably noticed that this tank has an AI Prime on it like the 180. If I scrap this tank, then that's one less light I'll have to buy for Alcatraz, or one less light I'll have to buy for my big new American cichlid tank. So I've been waiting for my diabolical plan to come to fruition about getting this big American cichlid tank. And I've been thinking about it for a while and making sure that every step is covered completely so that there are no surprises. And one of the things I was worried about is that the floor won't be able to support that amount of weight. So I had an engineer that was working with the people that built our house give me an estimate on how much weight this floor can hold, and it's gonna be just fine, so that's good news. So later on today, I'm planning on getting that order placed on the new tank. It'll take about probably 8 to 10 weeks for custom aquariums to build the tank, but I don't want to deliver that soon because it's the middle of winter and I don't want to pick it up when it's snowing or icy out and then have to worry about carrying this ungodly amount of weight from the truck into my house in the dead of winter. So I think I'm gonna have it delivered about the early part of May. And the reason I want to wait that long is because I have to build the stand for this thing too. And I'm a photographer, so I can take some really cool pictures of stands if you'd like me to, but I have to build this thing and I'm not a carpenter or furniture maker, so it's gonna take me a little bit and I want it to look as good as the ones that I have now. I don't want to be rushed. I can feel the stress right now just thinking about it. So I want to make sure that this thing is going to be built properly and I'll have enough time to do it. I'm really excited to get that tank in here and all set up, and then even more excited to order the fish that are going to go in it with those amazing personalities that everyone's talking about and the beautiful colors. And if you have fish, by the way, that aren't coloring up, then you need to watch this video where I tell you about 5 things that you have to do in order to get your fish to color up properly. You've been watching the Cichlid Charmer, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.